Of late years, I have heard a great deal against deacons, and have read discussions as to their office, evidently suggested by no idolatrous reverence for their persons. Many of my brethren in the ministry bitterly rate them. Others tremble at the mention of their very name, and a few put on their armour and prepare to do battle with them wherever they go, as if they were the dragons of ministerial life. I have been accused of saying that a deacon is worse than a devil, for if you resist the devil, he will flee from you, but if you resist a deacon, he will fly at you. This is no saying of mine. I never had any cause to speak so severely, and although in some cases it may be true, I have never had any experimental proof that it is so. Not one in 100 of the sayings that are fathered upon me are mine at all. And as one to this one, it was in vogue before I was born. I pardon the man who preached from James before that drunken Solomon, James the first of England and fourth of Scotland. The temptation was too great to be resisted, but let the wretch be forever execrated, if such a man really lived who celebrated the decease of a deacon by a tirade from the words, "It came to pass that the beggar died." I forgive the liar who attributed such an outrage to me, but I hope he will not try his infamous art upon anyone else. My observation of deacons leads me to say that, as a rule, they are quite as good men as the pastors, and the bad and good in the ministry and the diaconate are to be found in very much the same proportions. If there be lordly deacons, are there not lordly pastors? If there be ignorant, crotchety men among deacons, are there not their rivals in our pulpits? The church owes an immeasurable debt of gratitude to those thousands of godly men who study her interests day and night, contribute largely of their substance, care for her poor, cheer her ministers, and in times of trouble as well as prosperity, remain faithfully at their posts. Whatever there may be here and there of mistake, infirmity, and even wrong, I am sure, from wide and close observation, that the most of our deacons are an honour to our faith, and we may style them, as the apostle did his brethren, the glory of Christ. The deacons of my first village pastorate were in my esteem the excellent of the earth, in whom I took great delight. Hard-working men on the weekday, they spared no toil for their Lord on the Sabbath. I loved them sincerely, and do love them still. In my opinion, they were as nearly the perfection of deacons of a country church as the kingdom could afford. Yet, good as my deacons were, they were not perfect in all respects. I proposed to them on one occasion that I should preach on the Sunday evening by the riverside, as the remark was made by one of them, "Ah, I do not like it. It is imitating the Methodists." To him, as a sound Calvinist, it was a dreadful thing to do anything which Methodists were guilty of. To me, however, that was rather a recommendation than otherwise, and I was happy to run the risk of being Methodistical. All over England, in our cities, towns, villages, and hamlets, there are tens of thousands who never will hear the gospel while open-air preaching is neglected. I rejoice that God allows us to preach in churches and chapels, but I do not pretend that we have an apostolical precedent for it. certainly none for confining our ministry to such places. I believe that we are permitted, if it promotes order and edification, to set apart buildings for our worship. But there is no warrant for calling these places sanctuaries and houses of God, for all places are alike holy where holy men assemble. It is altogether a mischievous thing that we should confine our preaching within walls. Our Lord, it is true, preached in the synagogues, but he often spake on the mountainside, or from a boat, or in the court of a house, or in the public thoroughfares. To him, an audience was the only necessity. He was a fisher of souls of the true sort, and not like those who sit still in their houses and expect the fish to come to them to be caught. Did our Lord intend a minister to go on preaching from his pulpit to empty pews, when by standing on a chair or a table outside the meeting house he might be heard by hundreds? I believe not. And I held the same opinion at the very beginning of my ministry. So I preached by the riverside, even though my good deacon thought that by so doing I was imitating the Methodists. Another of those worthy brethren, a dear old Christian man, said to me one day, when I was at his house to dinner, "My dear sir, I wish you would not preach those invitation sermons. You are too general in your appeals. You seem to press the people so much to come to Christ. I do not like it, for it is not at all consistent with my doctrinal views." "Well," I replied, "what would you have me preach?" "Well, sir," he said, "though I don't like such preaching, yet it is evident that the Lord does. For my son-in-law was converted to God under one of those sermons. And when I came home the other Sunday, so angry with you for being such a Fullerite, there was my daughter crying fit to break her heart. So," he added, "don't you take any notice of an old man like me. As long as God blesses you, you go on in your own way." I said to him, "But, my dear brother, don't you think if God approves of this kind of preaching, that you ought to like it too?" "Well," he answered, "perhaps I ought, but I am an old man, and have always been brought up in those views. I am afraid I shall not get out of them. But don't you take the slightest notice of what I say." That was exactly what I had determined in my own mind that I would do. So we agreed after all.